everybody, and welcome to another NPCs Weekly News Roundup. It is July 17th, 2021. Tonight, we will be talking about Valve's Steam Deck and its competition, especially against the Nintendo Switch. We'll also be talking about the Joy-Con drift issue and how someone was able to fix it with a piece of cardboard. And lastly, of course, we will be talking about the new announcement from Bandai Namco, Gundam Evolution, which looks to be a cross between the Gundam franchise and Overwatch. Again, it is July 17th, 2021. We're going to roll our intro and get things started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another NPCs Weekly News Roundup for the week of November 20th, 2020. It is Friday. It is, where's my date? It's September 18th, 2020. Here's our first story, and this is actually breaking news for all of us right now here, too. Figured this is kind of a big one to cover, of course, with who it is. Joined via Discord by Kyle because we're in the midst of a pandemic still, and of course, everything is all kinds of crazy. So this thing is a chocker. I mean,
yeah, it's a beast.
It's huge. Doing that we had the Resident Evil stuff, that they were successful with Castlevania. Welcome to another NPC's Weekly News Roundup. And it's the news time. I am joined, of course, by Kyle via Discord. Kyle, hello.
What's up?
Man. And what's going on, everybody? It is Saturday, July 17th, 2021. Guys, we are already through essentially half the summer now, so welcome. Of course, it's kind of a shock to actually see how far we are along here in the summer. It is the NPC's Weekly News Roundup, again, July 17th, 2021. My name is Travis. Kyle is currently out tonight, of course. We'll catch up, of course, with him next week. Of course, we got the podcast that'll be coming up this next week as well, too, so you'll be able to tune in and listen to that. Check that one out as well. But we do have a lot of news stuff to talk about, or I have a lot of new stuff here to talk about, so by all means, go ahead and join in, and let's have our some fun here talking about some of the big things that have gone on this week. I apologize for some of the noise in the background. It is hot as hell down here in my basement where I'm recording at, so I've got the AC going in the background, so again, apologize for the extra noise. But yeah, let's kick it off here with our first news story of the night, and this actually happens to be the biggest one for this week, coming to us from The Verge. Valve's gaming handheld is called the Steam Deck and is shipping in December. Valve just announced the Steam Deck, its long-rumored Switch-like handheld gaming device. It will begin shipping in December, and reservations open July 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It starts at $399, and you can buy it in $529 and $649 models as well. The device has an AMD APU containing a quad-core Zen 2 CPU with 8 threads and 8 compute units worth of AMD RDNA 2 graphics alongside 16 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM. There are 3 different storage tiers: 64 gigs of eMMC, 256 gigs of NVMe, or 512 gigs of NVMe. Of course, those all relate to the price points listed earlier. You can also expand the available storage via a high-speed microSD card slot. The Steam Deck has a huge number of control options. There are 2 thumbsticks, but also 2 small Steam controller-style trackpads beneath the thumbsticks, which could give you more precision for things like first-person shooters. The front of the Steam Deck also has ABXY, D-pad, and a 7-inch 1280 by 800 touchscreen for 720p gameplay. The device also has a gyroscope for motion controls. Like the Switch, it has 2 shoulder triggers on each side, and there are 4 back buttons, 2 on each side, as well as built-in microphones. So, of course, here is a kind of overview breakdown of what the actual device looks like in question. You can see, of course, all the different layout here that really does mimic a lot of the Steam controller. I'll get into that in a minute. As for the battery, Steam Deck's onboard 40 watt-hour battery provides several hours of playtime for most games. For lighter use cases like game streaming, smaller 2D games, or web browsing, you can expect to get maximum battery life of approximately 7 to 8 hours. Valve tells IGN that you can play Portal 2 for 4 hours on this thing. If you limit it to 30 frames per second, you're going to be playing for 5 to 6 hours. And if you need to pause your game, the Steam Deck offers a quick suspend resume feature built into SteamOS that will let you put the device into sleep mode and pick up where you left off later. You can also, I'm just going to go ahead and stop the story on that one here and kind of go through some of the other features. Some of the big things, of course, that we're seeing with the Valve, the Steam Deck, really, it's very interesting, of course, that that's the name they decided to go with, especially out of everything else that they've done hardware-wise over the years. But the Steam Deck, of course, has the option for you to buy a dock that runs USB Type-C into the charging port on the top, and then you can output to any monitor whatsoever that you want, whether it's HDMI or DisplayPort. You do get Ethernet with that, and then, of course, full-fledged USB Type-A ports to plug in your keyboard, your mouse, and any other peripherals you might need, because this is a full-fledged computer. The OS that it's running, of course, for a lot of people familiar with it, is Steam OS. That is Valve's proprietary, or not even proprietary. It's Valve's fork of Linux. Originally, the Steam OS that we were all used to back in the day of Steam machines was based on Debian, and now it is actually based on a fork of Arch Linux. So, of course, this being built with such, and then it has their Proton compatibility layer built into it too. That Proton compatibility layer is what allows Windows games to be able to run on top of Linux. If anybody's familiar with that, of course, we've got it's called Wine, Windows in name emulator, I think is what Wine stands for. Anyway, if Linux is not your style, you can actually install your own operating system on it. If you want Windows on there, if you want another flavor of Linux, by all means, that choice is up to you. You do get a case, of course, with the console if you do pay for the second and third tiers, the $5.99 and what were they again? $5.99 and $6.49, I think, as well. $5.29 and $6.49, excuse me. So if you decide to go ahead and pay for or go with one of those, then you do get a case that comes with it. Otherwise, your base model, the 329 model or 399 model, excuse me, does not come with it. So interesting enough, of course, anyway, you know. But this device, of course, does look really good. A lot of the videos, of course, show how chunky that this device even is in the first place. It's one of those that, you know, I would probably be very comfortable with. My Nintendo Switch Lite fits very weird into my hands, and I think I need something definitely that's much bigger. Even the Switch itself with the Joy-Cons feels weird in my hands too. So you can see that a lot of people actually do feel or seem to be playing this rather comfortably. So I won't fight any of it whatsoever. I think it's actually a pretty neat setup. It is just a really neat looking thing. And I think the fact too that it's a gaming machine that you're able to, you know, like kind of following along the successes of like the GPD Win, you know, you actually have a full-fledged machine. You're able to plug in and play with whatever you need to, whether you are running a Windows or Linux environment on that. With this, you have to carry a few extra things around, but to kind of have a Linux machine like that kind of in your pocket is pretty cool in my mind. It's just some of the things nitpicking with the price point are where things really start to get interesting. What Valve is doing, though, with this is effectively like how you actually get it. So reservations for this, not pre-orders, reservations opened up for this yesterday on July 16th. And those reservations are for $5 based on the model, of course, you want. If you want them, they're each $5. That $5 is refundable if you so choose not to order. But this is essentially to build up exactly how many and determine exactly how many people want to buy this. So that way Valve can work through their supply chain, work on getting orders made, work on getting things picked up, and getting things just set and ready to go, at least for their ability to sell this to their customers. This just helps to show that demand, and you actually see that with a lot of car manufacturers, especially those who are building new electric vehicles. So there's a lot of that happening, you know, out there already. So for Valve to pick up on it and do it with this is pretty smart. But of course, even with the reservation, it doesn't mean that the device is going to be ready anytime soon. What's happening right now, at least, is that proper invites for being able to purchase it won't be going out until December. So if you have reserved and put your $5 down, you should be seeing an email from Valve sometime around December or even after that with the ability to actually go in and purchase. And that $5 fee you paid will go right towards that purchase as well too. But if you decide at that point in time you don't want to, you can get your $5 back. That's really no big deal, of course, for whoever you might be. So by all means, maybe maybe take advantage of that to at least reserve it. But of course, it's going to depend on the person. A lot of the things being talked about anyway with this is that it might be a very interesting way to go ahead and lug around Game Pass and Xbox game streaming with you as well, especially if you're a person who doesn't, say, like to clip your controller to your phone. You know, that's just another piece of stuff, a piece of equipment that you need to take with you to do so. So it's like maybe an all-in-one would be good, but it doesn't have any mobile data with it. So you're not going to be able to connect this up to 4G LTE, to 5G. It is all Wi-Fi specific. So might be something there to kind of take into consideration. It does look good. My only reservations with it are truly on storage, but overall, if I had if I had the dock, of course, to go with it, which with it being USB Type-C, you don't have to buy the dock that comes from Valve. You can go and get any sort of hub that you want that uses USB Type-C. If you are a Mac person and you use something like the more recent MacBooks or the new iMac PC, you can, God, that's actually kind of weird mixing it up like that. But if you have something like that, you already probably have one of those hubs. You can easily plug it into this and have all that exact same feature set without having to go shell out more money for another dock. But if you so choose to go and pick something up like this, by all means, it's definitely a very interesting looking thing for them to be doing. There's been rumors about it, but I may end up actually putting a reservation down. I have not fully decided yet. One thing I will mention before I move on here to the next story is that I see this actually being a potential for even more of a portable VR setup than the way things are right now for VR. You can go and buy something like the Oculus Quest. Oculus Quest 2 is, of course, the more recent one. You can go buy something like that. If you want to go buy something, say, like... there's a model out there that Valve already does right now. I can't remember the name of it, though. That is a standalone unit that doesn't require a computer to be plugged into. So that way you can have your VR experience. But something like this allows you to take, say, like that Oculus Quest 2, or even a different type of VR headset, and interface it with this to give you that full-fledged PC VR experience. Because the underlying hardware on this, the AMD APU with the RDNA 2 chipset underneath, should theoretically be enough to at least have a rather decent VR experience. It won't be the best, but doing something like this compared to lugging around like a full-fledged gaming laptop or even your gaming desktop to play a tried and true, fully immersive VR experience, I think that's actually a pretty good trade-off there, for $399 to have something like that and load up with VR games and go. But that, of course, is all in the eyes of the beholder on that one. Well, let's move on here to our next story in the list, and this one was a big surprise this week, especially. SpongeBob will smash in Nickelodeon's All-Star Brawl, which is exactly what you think it is, and this comes to us from Polygon. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, I can't speak tonight, folks, sorry, is a new fighting game that pits Nickelodeon's most famous characters against each other in pitched combat. Nickelodeon revealed the game in its first trailer on Tuesday in an announcement from IGN, and I will come back to the trailer up here at the top in a moment. The game looks to be a clone of Nintendo Smash Bros. Publisher Game Mill also makes the Mario Kart-inspired Nickelodeon kart racer games with characters from a variety of franchises that have each their own unique move set and battles that are set in arenas themed after Nickelodeon's various shows. While the characters' moves seem to be unique, according to IGN, some of the moves from certain characters will have to be unlocked, though it's not clear how you'll do that. Based on the trailer, it seems that the game will attempt to run the gamut of Nickelodeon's roster with old characters like Nigel Thornberry from the Wild Thornberrys, Powdered Toast Man from Ren and Stimpy, Oblina from Ah Real Monsters, along with new characters like Lincoln and Lucy Loud from the Loud House. Of course, other standbys like the cast of SpongeBob SquarePants and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles will also appear in the game, along with Danny Phantom, Zim, Helga, and even Reptar. The game will include 20 Nickelodeon-themed levels that will be playable in single-player or multiplayer, both local and online. And, of course, this game is expected to launch this fall. So go ahead and bring the trailer up here. Actually, I'm going to bring it up over here on YouTube instead because that's a little bit easier to see. But I better map that, too. Let's see. Oh, is it already doing it? Yay. Okay. So that is at least working. This game does actually look really fun. I think, of course, for some people who might be a little bit more intimidated by what Super Smash Bros. World is like, this is a kind of neat thing to at least offer out there. And I think Nickelodeon's properties, there's so many different characters you can choose from. It's going to be a kind of goofy and silly experience to have, like it shows there, Patrick fighting Nigel Thornberry. So that'll be great because Nigel Thornberry will be smashing, which is a terrible joke, I know, but deal with it. One of the features, of course, that was revealed in the developers' Discord was this will make use day one of what's called a rollback netcode. I'm going to turn that on a little bit because it's really hard for me to think. Rollback netcode, of course, looks like they are going to allow It allows effectively uh, online games where any sort of latency potentially appears to sort of compensate for any sort of delay or small amount of lag and keep things going at least under the surface where players who are actually playing it won't ever notice what's actually going on. And it's one of those things that even Super Smash Brothers doesn't have. It's been requested and begged for, but they don't have it. Not at all. So it does look like a very interesting game. I'm actually kind of excited to play it because there have been some rumored characters to come out as well. Korra, of course, from Avatar, and of course, Legend of Korra is all there. But one of the interesting ones, of course, and being a fan of Power Rangers, is that Power Rangers has been a Nickelodeon brand for a little while now. So to see one of them kind of appear wouldn't be a shock. But I guess it's all going to depend, of course, on the collaboration with Hasbro there. But even with that said, the game does actually look really fun. I think this game is going to be a very unique one to pick up and play with my kids. My kids are actually very excited for this one too. Again, doesn't come out until the fall, and I'm sure we'll probably be getting more information and hopefully even a demo at some point here soon. Alex on Facebook says, looks like they went with the 87 Turtles instead of the more recent series. It is actually more of the more recent series Turtles. It's just, of course, if you really go back and look at that trailer and how, say, like Patrick has been created in that game, he definitely looks off from the character of Patrick in SpongeBob. But no, those are the Turtles that are more from the some of the more recent Turtles series, Turtles series that they've been putting up on Nickelodeon. So just go back and take a quick look at that, and definitely not too bad there. Anyway, of course, moving on to our next story here, we have from Kotaku, Ubisoft delays Rainbow Six Extraction and Riders Republic. By the way, this is not our only story, of course, on delays for this week either. We've had another big announcement we'll get into after this. Ubisoft's fall just fell down a couple notches. Heavy hitters like Far Cry 6, Rainbow Six Extraction, and Riders Republic seem primed to carry the company into the holiday season. But now 2 of those 3 games have been delayed, one out of 2021 entirely. Ubisoft announced both delays today on its website. Riders Republic, an extreme sports game, moves from September 2nd to October 28th. Rainbow Six Extraction, a Left 4 Dead-like spin-off of the popular shooter series, slipped in all the way from September 2021 to January 2022. The company did not offer many details as to why both games will miss their originally projected release dates. For Riders Republic, the development team said the delay will give them more time to fine-tune the experience and give you another chance to jump in before launch and provide feedback. Rainbow Six Extraction's dev team, meanwhile, merely said that it's embracing the opportunity to take the additional time to bring this vision to life in the way it deserves in January 2022. Take a drink here. Both games featured prominently during Ubisoft's E3 presentation this year, with Extraction looking especially intriguing thanks to its blend of alien, splatter, and co-op, and/or grossness, is what they say. Riders Republic does not have aliens that we know of, but it does feature co-op and a whole mess of snowboards, bikes, and squirrel suit glider things to ride, presumably through some form of Republic. It also takes place in an open world, which can lead to all sorts of wacky glitches if the proper amount of polish is not applied. So, yeah, we got ourselves another delay there, but let's just hop right into the next delay here, which isn't really a shock that it's even happening in the first place. Bethesda PS5 exclusive Ghostwire Tokyo is delayed until early 2022. From Engadget here, Ghostwire Tokyo, the upcoming PlayStation 5 and PC game from Bethesda studio Tango Gameworks, has been delayed to early 2022. It was expected to arrive in the coming months. The studio says it's focused on protecting the health of everyone at Tango. It's based in Tokyo, where a 4th state of emergency just came into effect amid a sharp increase in COVID-19 cases. So their message, of course, goes on to say, we want to get the game in your hands as soon as possible so that you can experience the unforgettable version of a haunted Tokyo that we've been hard at work building. Tango, which also made The Evil Within, wrote in a tweet, our new release window will give us time to bring the world of Ghostwire to life as we've always envisioned it. Although a specific release date hadn't been set, Sony suggested in a CES 2021 presentation that the spooky Ghostwire Tokyo would arrive in October. The company later took down the video and replaced it with a version that dropped release windows for several third-party games. Bethesda announced Ghostwire Tokyo in 2019, and Tango plans to show off more of the paranormal adventure in the coming months. Ghostwire will be a timed console exclusive on PS5. It's highly likely Ghostwire will eventually come to Xbox, though. Microsoft owns Bethesda after all. So, we have ourselves two different interesting delays here right now. We have Ubisoft delaying two very, very looked forward to games. One of them, especially, I was actually looking forward to Riders Republic coming out. And, uh, Rainbow Six Extraction, of course. I played a little bit of Siege, so there's a lot there in the lexicon of Rainbow Six that I don't even understand. And then, of course, Ghostwire Tokyo being delayed. Focusing on Ghostwire Tokyo, of course, we still got Deathloop coming down the pipeline for PlayStation 5 release here soon. And of course, that was developed by Bethesda as well, or at least being published by Bethesda. One of the problems, of course, with that, and this is something that Kyle and I had spoke about earlier this week, was that potentially maybe Bethesda's put too much emphasis in working on Deathloop and trying to get support there, which is why GameWorks or Tango GameWorks has not been able to properly focus on Ghostwire. At the same time, of course, we had the announcement of, was it Starfield, I think is the next game coming out from Bethesda. They would be, putting a lot of emphasis into developing their brand new IP, their brand new universe, their brand new effective code base there to bring up something that's not Fallout or Elder Scrolls. Of course, we haven't even heard any more about Elder Scrolls 6. So it's very likely that what we're seeing here right now could be a potential product of all of those different delays, all those different problems. It could be a potential product of all of that emphasis on working on those other titles. But it's yet to be seen, of course, because it's all things that have been announced, and it's just a matter of time until we actually learn what truly did delay it. The pandemic, of course, is one thing. We've been seeing multiple delays across the industry because of the pandemic, both in the hardware and software side. I mean, seriously, try to find somebody who's been able to actually land a PS5 in the last few months, at least the right way. So even then, it's like there are still things that are causing problems. So we're not out of the woods yet. There are probably going to be more delays than this, at least especially announced in the time coming up. But it's just going to have to be a wait-and-see approach to see what does come out of it. We're seeing cases go up here in the United States, so we may end up going back into another round of lockdowns. We are, of course, still dealing with a lot of the shortages, though. So yeah, it's just going to actually see if the overemphasis from Bethesda on working maybe on some of the other titles could have been the blame, or pandemic could have actually been part of the problem too. Matter of time to actually see that. But let's move in here to our next story. Of course, this is one of the ones we talked about in the intro. This one comes to us from Screen Rant. Nintendo Switch Joy-Con drift fixed with a single piece of cardboard. A permanent fix for Nintendo Switch Joy-Con drift may finally have been discovered without the need to send off the controllers to Nintendo. While PlayStation and Xbox controllers can experience drift, the Nintendo Switch has become notorious for the problem, which causes the thumbsticks to register movement without even being handled. Drift has been a problem for many Nintendo Switch owners, with the issue even causing some games to become unplayable. No matter what title is played during a drifting Joy-Con, players will find their in-game movements imprecise and even broken, with characters moving across the screen without the Joy-Con being touched. Unfortunately, there's no permanent fix for Joy-Con drift, though hardware can be sent directly to Nintendo for repair by filling out an online request form. Earlier this year, the European Consumer Organization filed a formal complaint against Nintendo over Joy-Con drift, calling for an investigation into the problem. VK Channel on YouTube may have found the answer, sharing a quick and easy fix for those suffering from Nintendo Switch Joy-Con drift. According to the user, the solution is a permanent one and might be useful for those unable to get help from Nintendo itself. As VK Channel explains, they tried multiple different ways to fix the controllers, only to find them mere temporary solutions. They took it upon themselves to find a better way, using a simple piece of cardboard. The user believes the reason drift happened is due to metal pieces around the thumbstick becoming loose over time. When dust and grime is added into the equation, the problem can worsen. They believe adding a small piece of card, around 1 millimeter thick, to the mechanism inside of the shell works to restore pressure and encourage metal contact seen in newer and tighter Joy-Cons. The full explanation and demonstration is here in the video, and of course we will hop into that in a second. VK Channel admits that while they did have some success with other methods, this is a more permanent solution. The YouTuber says that they initially tried this trick 2 months ago, commenting that the affected controller had experienced no problem since the card was inserted. Joy-Con drift has affected both the Nintendo Switch and the Switch Lite, though opening up the latter might prove to be more troublesome than a standard detachable controller. If players are looking to try the trick at home, it's worth noting that opening up some hardware can void manufacturing warranties. So yes, that's absolutely right. If you are one to attempt try to do that, just remember, yeah, you're going to run into a problem. So of course they said, you know, it's around about 555. So here it is exactly. So of course we can actually see some of the internal pictures here inside the actual Joy-Con thumbsticks and such. They're actually showing here, of course, the bits that are actually kind of part of the problem where it comes to the contact itself. So we can see here if I go into the video. As he's doing it, of course, this is actually a calibration thing within the Nintendo Switch itself. So you can actually see what's going on with the stick. You can see it actually is drifting down. But as you see, he puts pressure there on the case of it, and he's able to actually recover it. So where does the solution come in? Well, let's take a look here where he should be actually tearing this thing apart here in a minute. Let's see here. Let's scrabble through a bit. So come over here to this. We should be going there here in a moment. Let's see. There you go. Easy enough. It's just opening up, and it looks like you're putting it directly on the sort of heatsink metal back behind the actual Joy-Con itself, or the Joy-Con joystick, and being able to help at least resolve some of that issue, especially if you might be out of warranty on the Joy-Con itself. That's going to be one of those good things, especially. But remember, there are videos out there that show you how to get into it, but opening up the Joy-Con is actually a problem for some people. It can be one of the more difficult things to open up on the Nintendo Switch. Oh my god, sorry about that with the yawning. Oh my gosh. Sorry about that, folks. But what we're seeing here, of course, is actually a rather interesting fix, and for something like this to be incorporated, of course, into future Joy-Con development, where it needs to be at is really with Nintendo. Hands down, it doesn't matter if that's where they're buying them from, if they're buying them from the, they're buying all these different joysticks from the same manufacturer. If they can get the actual casing for the Joy-Con retooled to actually add in more of a pressure point in the Joy-Con itself, like if you go in and look at the tooling there of the actual plastic piece there for the back, and you could add yourself some sort of riser back there, whether it is a pad that they just stick in there, or if they actually do retool it and it's just a chunk of plastic that doesn't get machined out or formed out, then that could be it, and there you go. Joy-Con drift has been completely fixed. But it's going to have to wait to see what Nintendo does actually responding to something like this, though, too. They're probably going to be more like, hey, just send it into us. We'll fix it so that way you don't fall out of warranty or any other problems. We know what we're doing. It's our product. But, of course, if you're one who likes to repair your own stuff, this is the way to do it. So take a look at that. If you're experiencing Joy-Con drift, go ahead and give that cardboard trick a try and let us know how things go. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and roll on to our next story, and this one actually looks very exciting. From GameSpot, Gundam Evolution is basically Overwatch with it closed itself out here. It's not rendering it properly. It's basically Overwatch with mobile suits. Closed beta is set for August. Publisher Bandai Namco has announced a brand new Gundam game for PC called Gundam Evolution, a free-to-play 6 versus 6 FPS that looks a lot like Overwatch. Closed beta is set for August 8th through 9th exclusively in Japan. Gundam Evolution features 12 mobile suits across the Gundam franchise. This includes the RX-78-2 Gundam and the MS-06 Zaku 2 from Mobile Suit Gundam, WDMO-1 A Gundam from Turn A Gundam, and ASW G08 Gundam Barbados from Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. Players can select their Gundam and compete in a team-based 6-for-6 mode, with each mobile suit having their own unique abilities and fighting styles. And much like Overwatch, players can swap between Gundams during the match. So here's the trailer. Because I had actually watched it earlier, so oopsie doodle. Let's go ahead and unmute that itself. But yes, this game does look like, quite honestly, like Overwatch and Gundam had a baby. If there is a way to get my hands on something like this, especially out of Japan, I don't even care if the way to get the game is out of Japan and it's all stuck in Japanese, I'll still play it. I would still enjoy playing something like this. I'll try to work out something with Google Lens to be able to actually read it and look at things on here. But it does. Like, if you tell me that this doesn't look like Overwatch, then you have a problem. You have a problem. I mean, it's pretty clear to see that. But man, does this game look good, though. So because, of course, this Gundam is hugely popular in Japan, and of course Bandai Namco, and Gundam's. I think Gundam's parent company is Bandai, because of course it's all based out of Japan and they're Japanese companies. It's not a surprise for them to stick with their home base of Japan being the actual market. For it to make its way over to the United States would be really cool, but only time will tell, of course, because it's not going to release until 2022. But of course, because it's going to be a free to play game, what that ends up meaning for us is that it will probably be a game that has some sort of in app purchases as well. Whether it's a Gundam that you're end up like able to buy, like if they unlock them over time, of course, and then give them to you and add them to the roster, hey, cool. But if you want it sooner, you might be able to go ahead and pay for it. You know, Wing Gundam, Unicorn Gundam, Death Scythe, any of those. Might potentially become available there in the future. You might end up having to actually pay for them. So that's most likely what's going to happen here. In the meantime, at least until we can play it, we move on. In our second to last story here tonight, from CNET, and this one was a surprise, Netflix to add video games to its service, on its service at no additional cost in the next year, report says. Netflix is expecting to expand its video games on its service at no extra cost within the next year, widening from its bedrock business of TV shows and movies as the world's biggest subscription video service, according to a report by Bloomberg. It would move Netflix into a major entertainment segment, gaming, that it has called out as some of its stiffest competition for your attention. Netflix confirmed Wednesday that it hired former Oculus, Electronic Arts, and Zynga executive Mike Verdu as vice president of games development. A spokeswoman declined to comment beyond his hiring. The games will be available as though they are a new genre on the service, and Netflix doesn't plan to charge extra for them, according to Bloomberg, citing an unnamed person familiar with the matter. Netflix hinted recently that it'd be interested in stepping up its pursuit of gaming. The company has flirted with games before through its interactive choose-your-adventure style programming like Bandersnatch and through some licensing and merchandising partnerships. But in April, Netflix's chief operating and product officer signaled that Netflix's interest in gaming may be advancing. We're trying to figure out what all these different ways we can deepen that fandom, and certainly games are a really interesting component of that, Greg Peters said at the time. There's no doubt that games are going to be an important form of entertainment and an important modality to deepen that fan experience. As Netflix has grown to more than 207 million subscribers worldwide, it has long pointed out that its competition extends beyond the traditional TV and movie companies that go head-to-head with it. The company has repeatedly called out gaming phenoms like Fortnite, as well as user-generated video powerhouse YouTube, as some of its toughest competition for the massive collection of entertainment hours they command worldwide. Netflix getting into gaming is by far one of the most bizarre things to actually see kind of coming out of the company itself. Because Netflix, of course, is still in the business to actually send you movies by DVD and Blu-ray if you so choose to go that route. I don't know how many people actually do anymore, but that is still a service that they offer. But for them to add games in, it comes down then to how you actually interact with those games. Even if they hire this person on here, what are these games actually going to look like? Are they going to be the games built in the service and you have to plug a controller into the side of your TV? Do you use the keyboard and mouse on your laptop or desktop to play games in a Netflix app? Do you use your phone and use touchscreen controls to do it? Of course, there's a lot of speculation on what could actually happen. But what we're seeing here, of course, is a unique approach, of course, from Netflix to at least start to garner more attention from its users. And of course, right now, it's not like there's a shortage of things to watch on Netflix, but to be honest with you, for them to include gaming would definitely command more of that attention potentially, because then that means for a user to go and play a game, they don't have to leave the app. Everything is all controlled in one spot. Doesn't really surprise me that they would go and consider doing something like that. But in the long run, it's going to depend on how they implement it, what they implement with it, and how you interact with it. That's where all of that's going to come in. Otherwise, this could end up being, vaporware. We could see another instance of something like the Ouya. Could be maybe something like Amazon does with Luna and Google does with Stadia, where they're using, of course, a Fire Stick or a Chromecast Ultra and then their own proprietary controller. Could we see a red or white or black, with all the different tones of the Netflix logo there, showing up on a controller there that looks, again, like a cut and paste or a copy paste, from one of these other companies that are doing cloud-based stuff now? It's all just things we can start to think about and wonder, But I'm genuinely curious to find out for anybody that is listening right now what they feel about that specifically. Like, how do they feel about Netflix entering the gaming space? Is that something that interests you? Is that something that you feel like you would actually use, or do you feel like your time is so eaten up that Netflix is more just for watching the movies and the TV shows they have, putting it on in the background, and then actually going and playing a game on something that's more game dedicated, like a like a gaming PC or an Xbox or a PlayStation? What does that really come down to for you? So, let me know in the comments there, of course, what you think, and we'll respond to them potentially next week, depending on what your comment is. We'll have to see. In the meantime, of course, we got one last story here, and then we are signing out for tonight. This last story, of course, comes to us from Smithsonian Magazine, of all places. Super Mario 64 is now the world's most expensive video game. A pristine copy of the 1996 game sold at auction for $1.56 million, breaking a record by The Legend of Zelda just 2 days prior. Designer Shigeru Miyamoto first stripped up the character Mario, a mustachioed Italian plumber loosely based on Nintendo's real-life landlord, in 1981. Clad in bright red overalls and equipped with cheery catchphrases, not to mention startling agility, Mario has since become one of the most iconic video game characters of all time. As demonstrated last week, Nintendo's beloved mascot also commands high prices. Per a statement, an unopened copy of the 1996 game Super Mario 64 smashed records on Sunday, becoming the most expensive video game ever sold at auction. An anonymous buyer scored the game for $1.56 million, including a 20% buyer's premium after 16 bids, reports the New York Times' Neil Vigdor. According to Dallas-based Heritage Auctions, the sale marks the first time in history that a video game has sold for more than $1 million. Previously, the record was held by a 1987 copy of The Legend of Zelda, which sold for $870,000 earlier this month, which, honestly, I'm going to correct this right now, that was within days. The Legend of Zelda game sold was days prior to the Super Mario 64 sale. Anyway, I wanted to make sure that was out there with it. Nintendo released Super Mario 64 as one of the first games for the Nintendo 64 console in '96. At the time, the game sold for about $60 per the Times. Nintendo has since sold around 12 million copies of Super Mario 64, writes Sanj Atwal for Guinness World Records. Super Mario 64 marked a watershed moment for gaming as Mario's on-screen world received an immersive upgrade. Previous entries in the franchise featured two-dimensional side-scrolling displays. Super Mario 64 was the first Mario game to feature three-dimensional environments, writes Jonathan Edwards for the Washington Post. The game player guides Mario through a quest to rescue the ruler of Mushroom Kingdom, Princess Peach, from his archenemy Bowser, the king of a tribe of turtles, also known as the Koopas. The newly auctioned cartridge stands out for its near-impeccable condition. Protected by a plastic case and still in its factory-sealed, shrink-wrapped packaging, the item received a 9.8 or A++ rating on the Wada scale. In other words, report to Ethan Gotch for Kotaku, the work is practically undamaged. To earn the rating this high, the box and the seal have to be in perfect condition. Heritage video game specialist Valerie McLeod tells Nina Kravinsky of NPR. As to look as pristine as the day it came off the assembly line, she adds, and this cartridge essentially has no notable imperfections. Still, writes Aaron Mack for Slate, the sale baffled some experts. Video game historian Chris Kohler, for instance, noted a surprise on Twitter. I figured the first $1 million game was imminent, but I didn't think it was going to be today or this. As Kohler tells the Post, he assumed that it would be a more famous game, perhaps the original Super Mario Bros. Game released in 1985. It would be the first to break auction records. That game marked the first time Mario appeared on screen with his taller, greener-clad brother Luigi, per the Times. Millennials' nostalgia for the video games of their youth might be driving up the sharp upturn in prices. Kohler says the Mario sale arrived on the heels of another record-breaking bid. Last Friday, again within only a couple days, Heritage sold a 9.0 rated 1987 cartridge of The Legend of Zelda for $870,000, the most money ever paid for a video game. The record lasted just 2 days. Yeah. To break the world record for the most ever paid video game at auction not once but twice in our first video games auction exceeded my wildest expectations, says McLecky in the statement. So yeah, they literally went from one game being sold at almost $1 million to a game being sold for over $1 million. And the actual picture of this game itself, like the actual condition of it, is pretty astonishing. I'm going to get a better picture of it. Let's see, Super Mario 64 auction. See if I can actually get a better picture of what the thing looks like in its case. Let's see here. Sorry, I gotta sort this down here to being something a little bit easier to actually look at. Let's see. Image, new tab. There we go. Okay. So I'll go ahead and switch back over here to my capture. Okay, so we can actually see this here now, especially for what this looks like. So you can actually still see the cellophane wrapping inside of it, or inside this larger case itself. But what you can also see, of course, is even with the plastic on, there's still at least a little bit of damage to the box here in the corner. I looked at this, of course, when the auction was done, and of course the news came out. There were a couple little bends in the box, but the actual plastic was not broken. And so for that, of course, to be able to even last this long, I mean, this game came out so long ago, is just obscene. Like, obscenely good for someone to be able to hold on to it in this capacity and this look. For it to even stay in this quality for as long as it has is just astounding. And it makes me wonder how many other people are sitting on games that are old and still sealed and could potentially walk away with a lot of money. Now, of course, the controversy behind this really does kind of stick out, of course. It's not really controversy, it's more just kind of the curious side of things. And that really focuses on, of course, that Legend of Zelda, that cartridge there, sold for $870,000, and that was a sealed copy as well. Had a little bit more damage to it, though, than this one. But even at the $870,000, and this being a couple days after the fact, it's like this one here surprised a lot of people because of the price it fetched. And some people were wondering, it's like, okay, is this an artificial inflation of Super Mario 64 here? Is this like some sort of thing where they're trying to drum up more interest in video games being auctioned? It's tough to say. There's been no definitive evidence to say such like that. It's just, it is very curious. However, the more likely situation here is that it becomes more of a fear of missing out. Becomes a fear of missing out for collectors who think that if they don't jump on board to start bidding on something like this, and at least start to acquire things like this, then truly they are going to miss out, because I'm sure we are probably months away from a game auctioning even higher than this. Maybe we'll hit the $2 million mark on something, and it could be like the article said. It could be, the original Super Mario Brothers. Hell, it could even be the 2-pack of Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt in a sealed package that has the light gun inside of it. You don't see a lot of that anymore either. So there's a lot that could happen. There's a lot that, there is potential for with what we could see coming up in the gaming world. But yeah, for at least Mario to sell for $1.56 million alone, that's pretty crazy. That's probably by far one of the craziest things ever. So who knows? Maybe you could be holding on to one of those games that needs to be appraised and then sold. But remember, a lot of things are going on in the world of collectors and appraising things. So if you send something out for appraisal, it's probably going to take a while to get back to you. So please make sure you keep it insured and keep an extra eye on it, of course, with wherever it actually does go. Of course, with that being the last story for this week, that is the end of our news stream. Again, Kyle was out this week, so we will catch him this next week. And of course, you can also catch us on our 2 podcasts now, or really 3 if you really want to look at it. We've got our regular one, the NPCs podcast, where, of course, we talk about, what we've been playing for the week. I kind of discuss some just, things going on in life there, so please make sure to check it out. That episode always drops on Tuesday. We got some stuff talking about Mass Effect in there as well, and some new things, at least, that we experienced with Microsoft's game streaming platform. So make sure to go and check that one out. Of course, on Thursdays, we drop our NPCs Discuss. That is more of a in-depth topic episode where we are exploring a particular topic itself and providing our opinions, our feedback on it, and of course, really looking to folks to also provide theirs too. This week, we are going to be talking about video game preservation, and of course, with those auctions, it's a very important thing to also consider. So be sure to go ahead and tune in and listen to those, and for the NPCs Discussed episodes that drop on Thursday. If you happen to work in the video game field, if you happen to be someone that is an indie developer, you used to work for one of these video game companies, you are a person who mods video games in their spare time, you are a person who works in video game preservation in one form or another by, say, studying an online service to try to figure out how to replicate the servers so a game can keep working. If you're someone like that, you're someone who works in the industry, by all means, reach out to us, and we may have a spot for you to join us and actually help contribute to the topic at hand. We'd really appreciate it. Be sure to drop us a message there on social media or hit us up at thenpcs.business@gmail.com, and we will respond back to you, of course, pretty quickly. With that, of course, on Friday is our last podcast, and that is our collaboration with Open Critic, where we do something similar to this here in a little bit more of a structured format. Open Critic's weekly recap podcast drops Friday mornings, and of course is a 15 to 20 minute long episode giving you the week's news as well. Of course, some things that we covered here in our live stream, some things that we may not have covered, but go and give that one a listen as well, because that helps out us a lot too. Of course, if you are watching us on Facebook, please make sure to hit that like button. If you're watching us on YouTube, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and notification bell. With that, of course, that is it for the news this week, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in and sticking with me as I worked through the news as best I could. We will catch you all next week.